الحمد لله الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين حنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة وذلك دين القيمة سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Welcome back to day 15 of the Viral Spirituality Bites. We've been discussing some of the lessons from Imam Ghazali's life, and we're continuing on today with a very, very important topic, which is namely intention and sincerity of intention. Because one of the main things that I would argue that is important about Imam Ghazali and his teachings, and that can be learned from his life, is that a person needs to be sincere in every undertaking of their life, and that one needs to constantly check whether or not what they are doing is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if it's not, then that needs to be corrected. As we saw in the life of Imam Ghazali, he left what most people would consider very desirable, a very high position, a very respectable position, a very honorable position, not just in terms of dunya, but in fact in terms of deen. He was considered like the Imam of his time already. Yet he gave that up and decided to go correct his intention and to find his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he felt that that was something that was lacking in his life. And then we also discussed the story of Imam Ghazali with his brother, where his brother didn't pray behind him, and they complained to their mother about the situation because the people were making a big fuss about it. And so Imam Ghazali's brother decided to pray behind him one day. He started praying, and then he broke his prayer in the middle and he went home. And Imam Ghazali complained to his mother that this is what happened, and now the people are making an even bigger deal out of it. And she asked him what happened, and he said that during the first 2 rak'ahs, I felt that Imam Ghazali was concentrating in his salah. And when it felt to me like in his 3rd rak'ah, he wasn't concentrating anymore, therefore he wasn't praying properly, so I decided to leave. And then she asked Imam Ghazali if that was true, and he said yes. Regretfully, he has started thinking about the dars, the lesson that he was going to teach after the salah, during the salah. And this is something that happens very often to all of us, right? We start thinking about the next thing that we're going to do after our salah is done. When we come home from the masjid or whenever salah is done, think I've got to do this, I've got to do that, right? And these are the things that are polluting our mind during our salah, either what happened during the day or what will happen during the rest of the day. There's a funny incident that's narrated as a joke, that there was a large jummah in a masjid, and the imam, he made a mistake in his salah, and instead of praying 4 rak'ahs, he prayed 3. So after the 3rd rak'ah, he sat down, and no one in the jama'ah said Allahu Akbar, or something to indicate to him that he needed to continue on and get up and finish the 4th rak'ah. Except one person. One person, he said Allahu Akbar, and the Imam realized his mistake, and the Imam got up and he started continuing his salah. And when the salah was over, everyone turned to him, and it didn't seem like he was a very pious person. It seemed like just a regular musalli in the jama'ah. He wasn't like standing right behind the imam. He wasn't like a person that's known for being extra pious or having concentration in his salah. And they asked him, how come you, of all the people, realized that the Imam had only prayed 3 and he needed to pray 4, he said, I have 4 shops, and usually in every rak'ah I do the accounting of each shop in every rak'ah. So when the Imam sat down for the final jalsa, for the final sitting, for the final qa'dah, I realized that I had only done 3 shops worth of accounting. There was 1 left, so I knew that the salah was had gone a little short. Allahu Akbar. So let's continue on today with talking about sincerity. So we also mentioned that if you focus on sincerity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of the rest. Right? The idea is that if you're sincere and you gain the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then your work and your efforts will be propagated in a way such that you could never do yourself. Imam Ghazali thought that the benefit of his life and the benefit that he had to give to the ummah lay in his teaching in university, whereas the benefit lay in actually correcting his intention, becoming more sincere, and then look at the works that he produced afterwards, such as Ihya Ulumuddin, which is studied till today. And people, when they hear Imam Ghazali's name, they say Rahimahullah. Instead, he could have just been lost as one of the faculty at the Nizamiya College in Baghdad, and no one would have even heard of him. And we also mentioned that sincerity is something that's learned and nourished. So I wanted to come to what we're going to cover today, inshallah, which is this idea of sincerity and ikhlas in intention. Just to give you some quotes from famous ulama, Sufyan al-Thawri, one of the greatest jurists of this ummah, he was a contemporary of Imam Abu Hanifa, he's during that time period. He said, I have never remedied anything more difficult than my intention. I've never fixed or corrected anything more difficult than my intention. And it is constantly overturning on me. It's a struggle, right? My intention, I have to keep checking it. It keeps drifting from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? You say, okay, I'm doing this solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But after you check later, there's some other intention that's crept in. And then you have to fix that. And Sufyan al-Thawri, right? I mean, if he's saying this, I mean, who are we? Right? Many of us, we get deluded into thinking that, oh, of course, all my a'mal, all my deeds are so full of sincerity, etc. But actually, we're not able to see the faults and the finer details of the issues that lie in our intentions. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, right, the memorizer of hundreds of thousands of ahadith, the founder of a madhab of fiqh, and well known for his piety, defending the aqidah of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah regarding the Quran, so much work that he produced. He says, as far as it being all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is a difficult claim. And he felt that it was difficult to claim that all the work that he did for the deen was solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah. A moment of ikhlas entails an eternity of salvation, but ikhlas is difficult indeed. You could just pray that one salah with perfect concentration and devotion. Allahu Akbar. If that one salah that would just hit the mark, that one dua that would just be like the lottery, right? You just hit the lottery. Say, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. What more could you need if that dua of yours got accepted? Right? It's like hitting the lottery. And in fact, all these different positions and times when they say, dua is more accepted, it's seeking that moment of acceptance and seeking that sincerity. For example, when you're at the Kaaba, right? The Kaaba, and especially some places at the Kaaba, the Hijr Aswad, the Multazam, the Mizab al-Rahmah, the Hatim, in general, Arafah, Muzdalifah, all these different places when you go on Hajj or Umrah are places of acceptance, right? But what's changing over there? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still the same. The same Allah that you called upon sitting in Atlanta, Georgia, is the same Allah that you're calling upon in the middle of the desert in Saudi. What's changing? It's you, right? It's you. You are attaining some level of concentration and sincerity and devotion in your salawat, in your du'as, etc. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted those places a certain barakah as well, right? And it's through the barakah of those places and your sincerity that you develop when you go to those places that things become more accepted, more readily accepted. Right. And this is the goal of deen, as per this ayah in Surah Al-Bayyinah. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين حنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة وذلك دين القيمة. While they were not ordered but to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, making their submission exclusive for Him, مخلصين له الدين, with no deviation. Mukhlis, as a person that has ikhlas, as a person that is completely sincere. So I wanted to mention some things that pollute ikhlas. What are the things that cause us to lose our ikhlas, the purity of intention? Number one, pleasurable feelings that may develop in worship. For example, you discover that, let's say, after Ramadan, you feel a certain pleasure in your salah. May Allah allow us to attain the coolness of our eyes in salah as per the Prophet ﷺ. And that's okay, right? It's okay to feel good during worship. It's not, in fact, it's probably a warning sign if you feel bad during worship, right? Like your nafs is basically so out of control that it doesn't like to be placed under restrictions that are present during worship. For example, in salah, many people's nafs, right, it feels constricted. Because obviously now you can't talk to anyone that you want, you can't look anywhere you want, you can't eat anything you want. In salah, you do the takbir tahrima, right? Tahrima means you make haram upon yourself certain things that you cannot do in salah. You can't turn, you can't look, you can't, right? There's a certain subset of things that you can do now. So same thing in ihram, right? In ihram, you place yourself into a sanctified state. You make certain things haram on yourself that are actually haram, that are actually halal during other times. And this is the same thing in fasting, right? In fasting, things that were halal earlier become haram all of a sudden. You cannot eat, you cannot drink, you cannot do so many things, right? So when you develop certain feelings during worship, shaitan comes along and says, oh, see, this is why you're doing it. That good feeling, that shiver down your spine, that calm, that tranquility that you attain during your salah, that's the whole purpose of your salah. That's the reason why you're doing it. You finally achieved something in deen. Congratulations, they'll pat you on the back. MashaAllah. And what happens is, you start chasing the feelings. You stop pursuing the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you start pursuing your own pleasure. How does this become manifest? One day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may take away that pleasure, right? One day you may not feel your salah anymore. You may not feel that nearness, that closeness, that tingle down your spine one day. The question is, are you going to continue to pray? If you are chasing the feelings, well, the feelings are gone. So if your worship becomes less when you're not feeling it, that's a warning sign. If your worship becomes less when you're not feeling good during your worship compared to when you were, that's a sign that you are pursuing feelings and you're not pursuing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do not pursue feelings. Feelings may or may not come. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He deserves to be worshipped, not because we get some kind of good feeling in our heart. So the mashayikh, they put this very beautifully. They say, don't become Abdul Latif. Don't become Abdul Lutf. Right? Al-Latif is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say, become the slave of Al-Latif. Don't become Abdul Lutf. Lutf means like enjoyment, right? And even in Urdu, they say, Bada Lutf aya. Right? They say, I had a lot of fun. So don't become the slave of fun, right? And pleasure. Become the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Latif. This creeps up all the time, and we need to be very careful about it. Right? After a lot of dedication and devotion, finally we are able to feel some pleasure in our salah. That's okay, but starting to chase that is the problem. The feelings are not the problem itself. The chasing of the feelings that creeps in afterwards, that's the problem. And you'll notice that, and you'll have a chance to prove yourself to yourself and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when the feeling goes away. Oftentimes when people first start getting into deen, they get these feelings, right? Let's say there was a time when, na'udhu billah, you were far away from deen. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided out of His mercy to pull you close to Him and to make you follow the Sharia and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Oftentimes you will get these feelings. But eventually, and it's like a bonus, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just gives it to you right in the beginning. And then eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes those feelings away. And then a person is left wondering what happened, right? Whereas actually those were just like little candies given in the beginning that you give to kids to do their homework. The goal is not to have them eat candies, but the goal is to get them to do their homework. They should continue to do their homework even after the candies stop. Number 2 is recognition, praise, and criticism as well. Recognition, let's say you do something good, people start recognizing you and they start putting your name on flyers, they start talking about you. MashaAllah, did you know that this person prays for 2 hours in the night? This person fasts every other day. This person reads so much Quran. This person's memorized so much Quran. This person has, doesn't miss a salah in the masjid in the first row. This person gives the adhan in the masjid now. This person is the imam sometimes in the masjid. This person started wearing hijab. This person, started doing this and that. All these things, people start recognizing the fact that you're doing something good. And you realize that you're being recognized, and it makes you feel good. Oh, a lot of people are saying good things about me. And in order to have more of it, you start doing more good deeds, right? In a way that can be noticed, right? All sorts of weird things start happening when you start noticing that people are looking at you. Praise, when people start praising you, you start feeling good. Oh, when someone says, MashaAllah, that was a beautiful recitation in Fajr this morning, you feel good. You feel good. And you think next time, man, subhanAllah, I'm going to recite that surah which has that powerful ayah and I'm going to make everybody cry. Right? So people don't literally say this, but this is what they're thinking, right? Sometimes the imam will repeat an ayah 2, 3 times and it's like you'll hear his voice quiver, and it's like, the imam obviously has to check for himself, why am I doing this? Am I doing it so people start thinking, MashaAllah, look how much he understands the Quran. Look how deep that verse was. And look how he realized it and how he, recited it 2 or 3 times, MashaAllah. I never really thought of that verse before. So he must be so pious. And if it comes naturally, alhamdulillah, it's okay. But you have to be very careful when you start doing it for the wrong intention. Criticism, when you start doing things, good things, and people start criticizing you for it, you stop doing it. So were you doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or were you doing it for the people? If you're doing it for the people, yeah, if they criticize you, you'll stop. If we're doing it for the sake of Allah, then you wouldn't stop, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still wants you to do that thing, right? This sometimes gets a little bit more tricky when it's people like your parents involved. Obviously, no one can leave the fara'id of the deen for anyone, let alone their parents. But certain nawafil and things like that, you have to talk to your local ulama about what happens if your parents severely oppose it, etc. Okay. Some people also make that mistake as well, where they start disobeying their parents deliberately in order to point out how wrong they are. That's also a problem, because the parents are also very important in the deen. So we'll stop there. I apologize, I went over the time yesterday. Didn't leave us enough time to make dua. And this is also one of the things that we should recognize, as Mufti Afsar Saab, Damat Barakatuhu, has mentioned in the WhatsApp in the today, that the dua at the time of iftar is accepted. Right? This is your day's effort being rewarded, and we should make sure that we take some time to make dua. Please make sure you remember this needy slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your du'as as well. And don't forget the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.